Today's date is October 18th, 2025.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good day, wherever you are in our international community, gathering here today to have another discussion about another conversation about forgiveness. Now, let's get started with that. I don't want it to be an overly formal presentation. I want it to be much more interactive today. I think that's more productive. Most of you who have attended have seen many of the slides, heard many of the conversations, although each time I come with a new consciousness and a new experience. So it's never going to be identically the same. But of course, once you have some basic information and experience, then in fact, it's going to be similar and parallel. Today, I'm using a phrase, and my words I choose very carefully. My concepts, my thoughts, my images in the PowerPoints have been thoroughly vetted and probably almost too subtle sometimes in the changes for me to remark on or for you to appreciate. But there's a density to it, there's a meaning to it, there's an experience that it reveals that will be helpful. That's the point of what I do. I'm not here to teach you or to impress you or to entertain you. Those of you who have any experience with me know that's the truth. But I am here to help. And I can. I needed help. I didn't know I needed help. And I continue to need help. And now I know that. Today we're talking about forgiveness, but through the lens of freedom. Freedom through forgiveness. Freedom. What does that means to you? To me, it means specifically in the 12-step jargon, step one, freedom from the first half, addiction, but more especially, and my most favorite topic, certainly for the last 10, 20 years, is freedom from unmanageability. You won't hear it much in the rooms. Freedom from unmanageability. Free to begin to take responsibility to manage my life. Yes, it is my responsibility, according to my knowledge, my experience, my interpretation, not only of a 12-step program, but of psychological and human development, for us to grow to maturity and manage our lives. Now, in the context of the 12-step fellowship and philosophy, this is not freedom to manage my life on my own. This is not a self-help program, please. Now, Dr. Luskin will come from the perspective of a self-help program. He's a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, trained and got his doctorate at Stanford University, teaches there today, 40 years later after I met him, as a professor, wrote the book. If you haven't got the book, please get it. If you haven't read the book, please read it, and more than once. He took his doctoral dissertation on forgiveness from a psychological standpoint and studied it practically, researched it scientifically, and he calls it the secular approach, not the spiritual approach. That's why he connects to me and me to him, because we're like two sides of the same coin. We have very different vocabulary, but underneath the vocabulary is the same dynamic process. And we discovered that together 40 years ago when we were asked to be on a panel. Me to bring my knowledge and experience of forgiveness from the 12-step perspective, and he to bring his knowledge and research from a scientific standpoint. And at the end of it, we had a conversation in which we agreed. The process is the same, the vocabulary is different. Freedom to manage our lives in the 12-step context is in partnership, not self-help, not full human development of me on my own, but full human development of me in relationship to life, knowing that I need help and that help is available and that I can establish a relationship with help. And I have the responsibility to define what all of that means to me. It has no necessary connection to any religious or psychological or particular vocabulary. Steps 2 and 3. Bill graciously, and thank God, inclusively used the term God as we understand God. 5 years ago, I had an insight during my meditation, and I've used it since to challenge our complacency with the language. God as I don't understand God. I have a daily meditation practice and have had that practice since 1988, 89. I was 5 years sober when a man explained to me how to understand and practice step 11 out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, pages 85 to 88. For the very first time, I understood what it is, how to do it, and why to do it. And that the recommended approach was a daily practice, and I practiced daily. A year later, I was introduced to a different facet of intentional consciousness, my terminology for this approach to consciousness, intentional consciousness, by Father Thomas Keating, a Trappist monk who talked about centering prayer as an aspect of contemplation in contrast to meditation. And I've incorporated centering prayer contemplation as part of my prayer and meditation step 11 practice. And I've written a book on that. Practicing the Here and Now, published by Hazelton in 2017. It looks at the panoramic view of intentional consciousness, described as prayer, described as meditation, described as contemplation, described as centering prayer, described as mindfulness, described as transcendental meditation. So many words for different approaches, different understandings, and different methodologies. And then takes that understanding of intentional consciousness to take a look at step 1 through the lens of consciousness, to take a look at step 2 through the lens of consciousness. Because it's that improved consciousness that continues to give me a partnership with the God of my not understanding, with the power of my not understanding, with the spirit of my not understanding, with the mystery. If I were to settle on any one word, well, maybe 2 words. My most favorite is mystery because it has no negative valence and it has no concrete attachment. My second word would probably be spirit, depending on who I'm talking to. My managing partner. but I'm talking about the freedom to manage my life in partnership with the reality that there is a power that I can have a relationship with. And freedom is one of the keys. Forgiveness is one of the processes. The big book suggests that we release and let go of our old ideas. And this man said to me at 5 years of sobriety, can you let go of your knowledge, which is extensive, Herb, given your background? Can you let go of your experience, which is fairly profound, Herb, given your 5 years of active growth in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous? Can you let it? And I knew it was not a trick question. And as I reflected on the approach to powerlessness, I timidly said, oh, I probably not. He said, yeah, the consciousness that creates the problem cannot be the consciousness that solves the problem. So we pray. Pray is a invitation. Pray is a request. Pray is the hope that there is some type of listening entity that will intervene and open my mind and open my heart. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I hope it is, and I act as if it is. I hope it is, and I act as if it is. Holy Spirit, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, my freedom, the process of forgiveness, and you for an open mind and especially a new experience of myself, my freedom, the process of forgiveness, and reality. And reality with a capital R. That mystery power that I hope exists and I trust that it does and I act as if it does. And I become acquainted with it progressively as it actually is. Bondage of addiction is real. Some of you are in a 12-step program, and some of you, hopefully most of you, have found freedom from your addiction, whether that's substance or process. Freedom from addiction, the first promise of the first 9 steps. Page 84, if you want to make a note, please don't be researching your big book or anything other than making notes on what I'm saying if it's helpful and you want to remember it and or take another look at it later on. Stay with me in terms of my commentary. I don't have a presentation. I have a stream of consciousness based on my knowledge and my experience. Bill says on page 84 at the end of the 9th step, we are placed in a position of neutrality. Neutrality, we're not resisting it, we're not fighting it. We're neutral. But the best kept secret in the rooms, I believe, and I do a workshop on that, the best kept secret is unmanageability. Why does Bill then say we're not cured and we have a daily reprieve? We're talking about forgiveness. That's the context of any comments that I make and that certainly that Fred Luskin makes. Is there any aspect of your attitude or your outlook that echoes victim? Oh, many of us, maybe most of us, have been victimized. Even if you're an addict, you could say, I'm a victim of my addiction. That is true, genetically hereditary. Yes, I was. But as you sit here today, listening to this, thinking about this, feeling the feelings that you have about your understanding and your experience, you're not a victim here. It's not happening now. Do you continue to blame them? Any aspect. In psychology, they will call that projection. Placing responsibility on people and circumstances for the suffering that I have. Ask yourself this question, in addition to what's up on the PowerPoint. What is my current suffering? What are maybe my current sufferings? And a more important question, not to be answered right now, but certainly to be asked. What are the sources of my suffering? My step 4, and then 6, and then 8 progressively revealed to me the sources of my suffering. Step 4, the sources within me that create my reactions that are unhealthy. Step 6, the difference between a reaction and a response, which prepares me for the emotional sobriety development once we get to step 10, finishing our amends in steps 8 and 9. In step 8, understanding and accepting the responsibility for the collateral damage, not just of our alcoholism or of our addiction, but the collateral damage of our selfishness and insensitivity. Is there any pocket of a shadow in you that is blaming, holding them responsible for your current suffering? It's very sad when I hear 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old men and women still blaming their parents. Not that the parents weren't blameworthy, but that was decades ago and is not relevant at this particular moment in anybody's life. Even if there's only been a day or a week's distance from the parent, I am responsible for my current suffering. The benefit, the harsh reality of step 4. A question that you can ask yourself, have I finished all my step 9 amends? I'm not doing a workshop on steps 8 and 9 or the 12-step process. This is all geared to the topic of forgiveness. It was during the process of finishing my 9th step and at the conclusion of my 9th step that I was introduced to the concept of and the process of forgiveness. It's not clearly given in the big book, but it clearly is the process of steps 4 through 9. Bill doesn't name it so. But in retrospect, as I look back over my shoulder, and then I met Fred Luskin and I read his book, I could see that that's exactly the process of forgiveness. I looked up the word forgiveness in a dictionary, and if you haven't done that, please do that. Maybe more than one dictionary and write it out. The key word from my standpoint was release. A decision to release. Now, of course, staying in touch with the 12-step philosophy and the underlying assumption of powerlessness, I am powerless to make that decision, and I am powerless to execute that decision. And yet, I need to make that decision. I need help in prayer and in accountability. I need help to activate it into action. I need prayer and accountability. Those two things that I really learned effectively in step 6 and 7. If you want to change and you don't know how, take a look at my comments in either my weekly workshops or perhaps in a separate presentation on steps 6 and 7, the most powerful steps for personal change on an immediate and focused, rifle focused, radar focused basis. You hear in the rooms, you'll never finish your amends. It's unfortunate. I understand some of the spirit of that, but it's ignorant. It means people don't know. And they're saying things they've heard in rooms that sound good, but that are just not true. You can finish your amends. And I have finished my amends each of the 4 times I've done the steps over a 20-year period with 4 different people leading me through the steps. Not the same amends. There's no redundancy here. But there's more light, and therefore it reveals the darkness, and we get down into the shadows more specifically and more courageously. Do I practice daily inventory when disturbed? I've done several workshops on step 10. Again, in the YouTube channel, you can find my understanding of and practice of and experience with step 10. What a great tool it is to keep us conscious and to keep the lens clean. My image is that I'm a lantern. I'm not the light, but I have light. I'm not the light. I have light in me. I am a lantern. And the lens gets fogged up because of my self-centeredness, my instincts gone awry. When they crop up, I'm able to get a little Windex of step 10 and clean the lens so the light in me shines to me, but then eventually through me to the path others are walking. We're invited to practice steps 11 and 12 on a daily basis. Why is that? To improve my consciousness. The key word to being fully human, I didn't say spiritual. The key word for being fully human is consciousness. And the more conscious, the more human, the more fully developed. Step 11, step 12, a two-sided coin. Step 11, a relationship with the mystery, with other, as I don't understand it, other with a capital O. And step 12, a relationship with the community of humanity. I used the metaphor of a coin having 2 sides. That turning that we commit to in step 3, that alignment that we commit to, not a word in the big book, but a word that I use that captures the spirit of and the practice of step 3 and the purpose. Alignment with reality as it's manifesting moment to moment to moment, right now, moment to moment to moment. Reality is manifesting. Like a river, we're standing in the river. The river's never the same. It just flows, and that's the word Bill uses about the benefit of consciousness, living in the flow of reality as it's manifesting. Watch some of the material from Dr. Berger on emotional sobriety, especially the workshops that we do together. He brings a psychological perspective. I bring a spiritual perspective. We both bring the perspective of experience with the 12-step process integrated into all of that. Taking full responsibility for our consciousness and the actions that come from either consciousness or unconsciousness. The promise of freedom is from addiction, of course. But the bigger promise is freedom from unmanageability, freedom from unmanageability, but on a daily basis, not cured, daily reprieve, but a daily practice of 10 to keep the lens clear, 11 to have the flame bright and improving, and 12 to enlarge the capacity of the lantern. Stay with the metaphor. It's a phenomenal promise. The capacity for compassion will enlarge over time. As we give it away, we keep it. Have I experienced forgiveness? That is the release. Look at my hand. It's a great gesture to have an experience with what I believe is meant by forgiveness. A decision, my decision, to release. Not to blame, not to reconcile, not to punish, not to get justice, a decision to release from me the feelings that I have, the thoughts that I have, the hurts that I've experienced, to release it. It's not happening now. Have I experienced freedom of forgiveness? I asked you about your current suffering and your source of suffering. Of course, you're here. You've taken the time, you've paid the registration fee. It's not a trick question. It's just a question for you to take a look at the reality of, do you believe in? Do you have a understanding of how you can be released from your own suffering? How forgiveness plays its role? And what is today's invitation? This is my overview of the 12-step process. It's about relationship, establishing a relationship with life, with reality itself. Step one essentially is I need help. You can use it with regard to addiction, but today I'd rather you use it with regard to unmanageability. I need help to have an attitude of fitting in. My skin. I need a relationship with myself. Fitting in with people, my community, others. I need help. And how do I maintain that? Steps 1 through 9 is the process of recovery. But steps 10, 11, and 12 is the process of living. Bill calls it our way of life and our way of living. A daily reprieve. We're not cured of our self-centeredness. Read page 62, that second paragraph. We can't even reduce it much by wishing or trying on our own power. We need help. Now, he uses the term God. If you're not comfortable with that term, use another term. We need help. Capital H? Why not? I need power. Capital P? I need a relationship with reality. Capital R. Your concept. Be very clear. It's not the big book's concept. It's not the Bible's concept. It's not the Quran's concept. It's not your parents' concept. It's not your church's concept. It's yours. Do you have a concept that you actually trust, believe in, and move your feet accordingly? That was the biggest question when I was 10 years sober that was asked of me that changed my program. The first question, what is it I believe? That was easy, I thought. But the second question was very confrontational. How do I behave in light of what I said I believe? If you haven't done that exercise, be prepared to be confronted. Our behavior tells us what we believe. Our behavior tells us who we are. Our behavior tells us what our principles are. Our behavior tells you what our values are. And what we do any one place, one of my teachers said, what we do any one place, we do every place. Again, a question that confronts us. How do I behave here? How do I behave there? How do I behave there? And you'll see a pattern. What I do any one place, I do every place. Because that's who I am, and I need to change. The total promise of the 12-step process is in the 12th step. An awakening. Appendix 2 confirms what that means. A change in the way we think and feel and behave that's done to us, a power other than ourselves. Not by us. This is not self-help. Please hear this. This is not self-help. Now, Dr. Luskin will come from the total perspective of psychology and self-help. He says we have an advantage. We people in a 12-step program, we people who believe in some form of spirit, we have a tremendous advantage because we have an X plus factor, which he can't use as a scientist. But we all agree it's going to be done to us, not by us, but not without us. I need to make the decisions. I need to take the actions. I need to hold myself accountable to somebody for my thoughts and my feelings, but especially my behavior. All human beings are in bondage, but only a few in bondage of addiction. All human beings are in bondage of self. And even those who finish the 9th step continue to be in bondage of self. It doesn't go away, not cured a daily reprieve. We need to learn how to drop the bars that we created, take full responsibility for our role, take complete agency for our thoughts and feelings and behavior, that we create our suffering by our reactions to reality. It's hard to get away from any of the concepts of emotional sobriety in these kinds of conversations at this point, because that's what step 10 is. Step 10 is the tool of emotional sobriety to continue the work that was finished in steps 8 and 9. Are you willing to be specific about the harm done and the actions to repair the damage? We need specific help from people who have knowledge and who have experience in order to make amends effectively. I needed to go to an attorney. I needed to go to an accountant. I need to go to professional people, an insurance adjuster. I need to go to a therapist for different aspects of the amends process to determine the most effective way of approaching the people and or of expressing myself. This man sent me to go to talk to a woman because he didn't have any experience with this particular situation. And he said, ask her, would, after 25 years, she want to be approached? And if she did, how would she want to be approached? And what would be the nature of the words for the amends? And I followed his direction, and I went and I talked to a person and I followed her direction. That's a story for a different day. It all ended very well. The point I'm making is not all people have competency and experience with each of the aspects of the amends that need to be made. But I finished all my amends. It's a conversation, whether that's in writing or on the phone or face to face. Again, a conversation for another day. Go to my YouTube channels. Lots of clear examples and lots of discussion with people about their questions and their experiences and the suggestions that were made by me and other people, and how to address people that you shouldn't find or people that you can't find and dead people, so that you can make amends wherever you feel that there has been damage that was caused by your behavior. What was the negative impact of your behavior on others? Forgiveness is that process of releasing them. The big book says we're not there to clean up our side of the street in terms of self-improvement. We're there to bring healing and help release them from any of the burden that we've placed on them. A process. It's a decision to do that, and it's a process to finish it, a decision to release them. There are things that can't be changed, of course, but I've never seen a situation that couldn't be healed. I have never seen a situation that couldn't be healed. Fred Luskin will talk about some of his work with North Ireland families whose family members had been murdered in some of the shenanigans that went on over there some years ago. A decision to release them. And we find that once we begin that activity, we are released. There are some myths about forgiveness you can see on the screen. It's not to condone or forget or tolerate, approve or excuse or minimize. Reconcile. You don't have to reconcile with family members if you don't want to. But this gives you the freedom and them the freedom to determine what kind of relationship you want, when in fact, you have the right attitude. This isn't about retaliation or exacting revenge. This is about releasing. You come to release them, you discover you are released. Isn't that what the Lord's Prayer said? We forgive them their debt, and we discover we are forgiven our debt. Or the St. Francis prayer. We bring forgiveness to them, and we discover we have been forgiven. A decision to be released. Fred Luskin's summary is similar. This is a very highly clarified, simplified verbiage for his process. He says we name it, the hurt. What was our betrayal? And then we understand what our hope was, what our expectation was. Realistic or unrealistic, it doesn't matter. It wasn't met, our expectation. But we see that many times it's because we have unenforceable rules. In the 12-step program, I call the third column in the resentment inventory my inventory of my delusional beliefs. Delusional beliefs. I didn't know that I didn't know, and I couldn't see that I didn't see until I did the analysis. And I couldn't do the analysis without the help of a person who helped guide me through. To acknowledge the reality of my attitudes, especially in column 4 when I looked at my motives. And I was able to take responsibility for the corruption of my motives that I again didn't know and I couldn't see. And that my responsibility was to accept reality as it is, mine and theirs, and make a decision to right the wrong, to balance the scales, as Chuck C would say, to implement the decisions, my actions. The two major pieces and components of both the 12-step process as well as the psychological process is that we make a decision based on reality and we take some actions that will be effective. My experience is they are released. They may not forgive me, but they've had the opportunity of having the experience acknowledged. Over time in prayer and with guidance from experienced people, we are released. Sometimes it would take therapy, as it did with me, to deal with trauma from the past or confusion concerning the present activity. I used therapy as a support to the step guide work that I was receiving and the sponsorship that I was receiving and the spiritual direction that I was receiving. I had 4 different sources and resources to support me through the process. I believe I read this someplace, but I codified it in my own words. A forgiving person has no past. Released. An unforgiving person has no future because we're in the bondage of the negative energy that comes from holding on to the grievance. That bondage of self-pity. In step 9, we enter the world of the spirit. We experience neutrality, as I mentioned, with regard to our addiction. The second title page of the big book calls it recovered. Past tense. And it's the word that is used consistently throughout the book. Recovered. Once you've finished the first 9 steps. Restored to sanity, meaning that we're not subject to the obsession. We have a shield that protects us, a power that stands between us and the obsession. But we're not cured. We have that daily reprieve, that unmanageability that we talked about. Do you have a sense of contentment that comes out of the process of the practice of step 10? A life of alignment with reality as it is. Bill tells us that we enter the world of the spirit, that this is our way of living. We clear the channel, stay with the lantern comment, the metaphor that I used at the beginning of our discussion. We clear the channel We address the darkness, we diminish the darkness by bringing in the light. A spot check inventory. We fill the channel with light in step 11. I'm not the light, but the light grows brighter with practice. More consciousness, more consciousness, more consciousness. Think dimmer switch. The light gets brighter one notch at a time, one day practice at a time, leaning my shoulder against the dimmer switch, pushing it forward one notch each day and preventing it from going backwards each day because it's hardwired to go backwards. Dr. Tebow said, first 9 steps definitely create the deflation of the ego at depth, but the ego has an uncanny way of regenerating itself. Brilliant observation. Daily reprieve, not cured, of our selfishness and self-centeredness. It's not a bad thing, it's just a thing. And then to allow the light in us to flow in us, to us, and then eventually through us, perhaps even through the wounds that have been healed, so that they can, in fact, heal the wounds of other people. To be useful. I don't use the word service any longer. I use the word help. How can I be helpful? How can I be useful? I'm going to stop there and take questions. I have more slides if, in fact, we have some time, and some more comments if we have some time. But I'm looking at the time, and it's 11 o'clock here in Los Angeles. And so I'm going
Hello,
to,
Herb.
there we go. Thank you for being there, letting me know that you're there. And I'd like to introduce now uh, Fred Luskin, who is not a good thing. Can you hear me?
Oh, well, that was quick. Okay.
Yeah, well, I was going to open it up, but I'm glad you're there and we have time, so we can open it up to questions later on now that you're here.
I'll do so later. Hey, Herb, I'm actually calling in from Venice, Italy.
Well, it looks like they have electricity.
A little bit, but it's what is it, 8 o'clock at night here.
All right. Well, you look
It's
very awake.
it's an interesting thing. Well, hello everyone. Um, as I was walking back to my room, the thing I was pondering is what would I say? I mean, I've talked about forgiveness like so many times, and I've talked to Herb's group multiple times, but I thought I would share a an experience that I had, I don't know, 2 3 weeks ago. Um, I've known Azim Kamisa for a long time. He is a forgiveness teacher whose son was murdered maybe 30 years ago. And he's a pretty devout Muslim. And, he prayed for guidance when his son was killed. And the guidance that he got was to forgive. And he took that guidance pretty strongly and advocated for the release of the kid who killed his son. My God, let me think. The kid was 14 when he killed Azim's child. And what made this interesting was I was meeting Azim for like tea one afternoon. He lives in San Diego. And when I came to the restaurant where I was going to meet him, the person who had killed his son was there. The man who had spent I don't know how many years, but 25 years in prison. He was there at the table having lunch with Azim. And, they introduced us, and I gave the guy a hug, and then he left because Azim and I were going to meet. But I had it felt really profound, just a remarkable thing that, I would, that he was so friendly and warm towards the person who had killed his son. And we started talking about it. I mean, the guy who killed his son is now 40. And I don't think he got out of jail more than a year or two ago. But when I came and saw them together, I had, I had a sense that I was in the presence of some greatness. Every now and then you meet someone or something who's like better than you are, or has done more in life, or is showing more of the spirit than you are or I am. And I had that little bit of like sacred sense that, wow, this is an amazing thing, that he's so completely comfortable with it, that he didn't require any like wow. It was just, here's Tony. He's the person who at 14 killed my kid. And I remember then Azim telling me that he tried to have Tony not spend much time in jail, like just not have this experience, and that was not successful. And then he and I had a discussion around how I think I would have personally wanted somebody who killed anybody. I mean, if it was my son or my neighbor's son or any son that I didn't know, I feel perfectly good that the person spent 25 years in jail. Like that, that seems absolutely appropriate to me. And I would not have been somebody looking to help somebody like get out of jail free, so to speak. But the forgiveness piece seemed totally not just normal, but essential. Like I got that piece completely. But we had a discussion of our different value systems, that he didn't want this person to ruin any more of his life. Like he said, Fred, the kid was 14 and there was like gang stuff, and like, why would I want him to suffer more? And I remember thinking that, that's just not my way of looking at it. Like it's happened before. I've been in situations where I felt really good about punishment, but not about hard-heartedness or bitterness or blame. And it just pointed out to me, one, the total difference between forgiveness and justice. That forgiveness cleanses your heart. It says, hey, I'm clean. Justice says there are consequences to things. And sometimes they merge, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes the forgiveness leads to a different sense of justice, and sometimes the forgiveness just leads to forgiveness. The thing that most of us miss, though, and what makes our species so, I'm going to say, dangerous, is we valorize vengeance. And valorizing vengeance is not often that healthy. And it often comes from the absence of forgiveness. So if I'm still angry at whatever I think it did that harmed me, then I'm more likely to go for vengeance. I'm not sure vengeance is of much use to the well being of the human experience as a whole, but justice is a harder one to argue against. You know, as you sow, so shall you reap. And, you know, but at the same time, you end up with the Gandhis, you know, an eye for an eye makes everyone blind. So these are really deep and challenging questions. Like, where I'm going to articulate for my time here is I remember sitting with Azim and thinking, yeah, I totally get it. I could see how not anybody, but how you would not want to have a hard heart just because something terrible had happened. And I could feel that, and I could see it, and I understood it, and it resonated 100% with me. Like, why would I want to ruin my life because somebody had done something awful? And why would I want to bury my own heart? This, when I've told it to people that, you know, I met somebody who completely and unequivocally forgave and wanted mercy for the person who killed his son, people's faces contort and they pull back and they go, "Oh my God, how could he do that?" And I'm thinking that's not healthy. Like, that piece is not good, because what value does it add to this world, either for me or the parts of the world that I influence, to hold on to a grudge? Like, who does that help? I mean, I was even thinking about that tonight. Who does it help? Who does it help to know that 10 years later, I'm not okay about something? Who does it help that 10 years or 20 years or 5 years later, I still hold bitterness? What does that possibly contribute to any good? And I don't know many people who bring this up. Like, there's no valor in that, even though we valorize it. What valor is there about saying, I still hate somebody because they harmed me? Or I hate somebody because they harmed my tribe? Or I hate somebody because they did X, Y, and Z back in the day? What positive value do I think I'm contributing to this world? And why would it make that much of a difference just because you know the person who's been harmed? I mean, if I was saying that, like, I would not forgive X because they harmed me, but I generally been forgiveness for Y and Z because I had nothing to do with it, then my forgiveness means nothing. I mean, if it's a completely different value proposition, how close they are to me, well, that's pretty crappy. I mean, that doesn't contribute much in itself either. But when I looked at Azim and said, hey, I get why you did that. I could feel it in your heart. I could feel it in my heart. I can feel, even though that's difficult, like, what else you going to do? And then when he talked to me about his religious underpinnings, I understood that too. If you believe that there is a higher order and a spirit, then everything we know about that higher order and the spirit tells us to forgive. I mean, the whatever the voices of spirit are not equivocal. You know, all the religions say forgive and, The Christian faith says forgive 70 by 70 and forgive all offenses and forgive them. They know not what they do. So it's pretty clear that they're on team forgiveness. So if you're looking at it from a spiritual context, it's game over. But if you're looking at it from a human context, either, what value does it have to say, I still don't like this years later? One of the things I've reflected on this, and I might even have shared this at different times. One of the things that can maybe not convince me, but nudged me towards forgiveness decades ago. I was in graduate school. I was getting training to be a therapist. And there was a client that we were watching. You got trained to be a therapist because, in the way that there would be a person doing therapy, and the rest of the students would be in a room behind a one-way mirror, and we'd be watching them. And we were watching a student therapist sit in the room with a very attractive young woman. I think we're at the university. So this woman was probably like 21. And she was provocatively dressed and like very pretty and used her attractiveness, you could see. So the therapist on our world, you could see he was being seduced by the client, that his attention was fixed on her looks and he was kind of following her around, and he wasn't being an effective therapist. He wasn't being a therapist at all. He was just being an attracted person. And this went on for like 10 minutes, and the supervising therapist in the room said, he reminds me of my ex-husband. And we're like 10 newbies who are just at the beginning of our therapy training. And this is the veteran who's guiding us. And everybody in the room except her turned white. Like, oh, what are we supposed to do here? She's leaking all over the place about her ex. And we're in training to be therapists. Like, what do we do? She's like, not, who knows? So one of our group says to her, so how long you been divorced? And I think she said like 11 years or 8 years, but it was a significant period of time. And each one of us in that room got a taste. I probably more deeply than others, but I got a strong taste that something's wrong here. Something's very off here. That, look at this. This is a trained therapist who can't stop herself from saying something ugly about her ex while she's training therapists. And I thought, I mean, I couldn't articulate it then, but I knew that this is what happens when you don't forgive. That it litters your mind. It sits there and it rots in there, and it makes you say and do things that are not right, but you've practiced disliking something and holding a grievance about it for so very long. And so you leak and you respond inappropriately and you talk when you shouldn't and you say things that you shouldn't say as a supervising therapist. And my concern is with all of us who do that. Like all of us who are not like Azim. He doesn't have a negative thing to say about this guy. He blames the gang related culture that is destroying youth throughout the LA area. That's what he blames. He doesn't hold any enmity towards the young person himself. Most of us are not like that. Most of us do not have that goodwill. And so we practice in our own little way our own forms of hate speech. Like we practice that and we direct nastiness to people. And then as a group, as a culture, we start thinking that's normal. So that somebody like Azim, who completely let go of what he was holding, or I don't even know if he held it, seems unusual to us. I'm going to tell one more story, and then I'm going to do a short meditation practice. The one more story I'm going to tell is, I don't know, 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, we were invited to a preview of a movie in Salt Lake City. And the movie was called Just Let Go. And it was the story of a Mormon person who forgave the young man who murdered his wife and two children through drunk driving. That this, I think, 17-year-old kid got in his car after having like an entire bottle of vodka. And then I think drove the wrong way on a one-way street and struck this car traveling like 80 miles an hour. I mean, it was grotesque what he did. And it hit the side of the car where his wife was. And I know she was pregnant with a child. And I think it also killed their other child in the back seat. I think he and his son were on the other side of the car. So they were badly injured, but not killed. And he sees this young kid, like after seeing the accident, the kid is also a coward. He gets up and tries to run away rather than trying to help or assume responsibility. So the kid's not just drunk and like a murderer, he's a coward. And he blacks out and he wakes up in the hospital and he's like, not in great shape. And he's like praying to know what to do. And he hears a voice which he ascribes to Jesus saying, just let go, just let go, just let go. And the voice is like not compromising, not not giving him any wiggle room. It's just let go. So that voice is pretty compelling and it won't leave him alone. And he's a pretty devout church person by that point. So he figures, I need to forgive him. And I need to forgive him. And of course, his mother and other family members are aghast about how can you forgive this guy? I mean, he just killed your kid. And again, what this man did besides forgive his person was he went to the sentencing hearing. I think the kid was 17, and the question was to try him as an adult or as a child. And he went there, and his statement to the judge was I would prefer he be tried as a child, because if he's tried as an adult, he'll spend 25 years in prison. And if he's tried as a child, he will get out at 21. And I don't want to waste or ruin any more of his life. I want him to recognize he's been given a second chance, and I want him to use that second chance. So he makes a victim statement in front of the judge, and the judge listens and says, and it's not what I would have done, but if it means that much to you and it's your family that was harmed, I'll sentence him as a kid. And again, in these kind of situations, the young person is changed by this, and he and the man end up doing some talks together. I mean, when he's out of jail, but the remarkable ability to not be bitter and to listen to what each man thought of as his God and listen to what that God is telling him is profound. I mean, it's awe inspiring and it's profound that people get source material from a higher plane and they use it to do something that most people find remarkable. Again, I'm not 100% on board with the definition of justice, and sitting with Azim and this young man was a profoundly moving, almost sacred experience. But I can see, and I've been teaching this for decades, the unbelievable value it is to us not to be bitter. Just a clear, basic, clean statement. The unbelievable value to us that it is not to let ourselves descend into bitterness and not to have that ruin our life. It's like a plea, I'm sure whatever the spiritual intelligence is, that spiritual intelligence thinks of us almost in a plea, saying all the time, be kinder than you used to, be more loving than you used to, be more generous spirited than you used to, and forgive, because you have no idea how much you are going to damage yourself. And I saw the freedom, the unequivocal and complete freedom that both of these people had. Like, I met at the movie preview, I met the guy who did that forgiveness. I've known Azim for years. They have a complete freedom. They are not burdened in some ways by what happened to them. And I meet people all the time, burdened beyond measure by much less and from much, like, they're burdened in ways that is like painful to see. And so when I talk to audiences, I try to remind them, like, don't make your life harder. It's hard enough, you know. It's hard enough to be a human being. And it's hard enough to live in a world where all sorts of painful things can happen. And it's hard enough to deal with the crap life sends you. It makes it much harder when we don't let go of it. Like, when we don't, like, say, hey, life is temporary, I'm temporary, my wounds are temporary, all the crap that's happened to me is temporary. Let me be careful with this. So I'm going to do any of you who have attended with me before. I always include some kind of guided imagery practice. I'm going to do a very simple one with you all right now. So if you'd please close your eyes and put away your technology so that you can focus. And just settle in, you know, settle into yourself, settle into some quiet, just settle in, and close your eyes. Just quiet and center, quiet and center. And allow yourself to settle. I would use that more than anything. Settle in, quiet, gentle. Relax your shoulders. And quiet your breathing. Like the essence of the quieting of meditation is how it allows us to quiet our breathing and center ourselves. And it's really important that when you inhale, you're relaxed enough so that your abdomen can open and welcome air. Relaxed enough so that as you inhale, your belly gets bigger. Just a gentle expansion, but your belly gets bigger. And then you breathe out and you breathe in. And each time, what the cognitive thing is, I'm safe right here, right now. I'm safe. I mean, it's such a simple practice. This is not like highfalutin. It's just, I'm going to breathe the way I'm supposed to breathe. I'm going to relax my body so I can remind myself that I'm okay and safe right here, not necessarily an hour from now, but right here and now, I'm safe. And so when you inhale and exhale, you're practicing breathing in harmony. That's the practice. You're practicing breathing as if you're fine, as if the world is not it's not screwed up. That at least right here, right now, it's okay. It's a nice break. And then I'm going to ask you to bring an image to your mind of someone you love. I'm going to ask you to bring a simple image to your mind of someone you love. And picture whomever this is with as good and deep affection as you're capable. And feel it. Like, bring that image, have it warm your heart. and just relax into a quiet, gentle, warm heart. It's that simple for this moment. Just gently relax and allow the affection you have for somebody to open you. And then let that go. Let that go, relax, and very gently allow your eyes to open. And what I want to do, and this is probably, I don't even know what the word is. This was the simplest insight that we had 25 years ago or more now when we started the Stanford Forgiveness Project was who you are at the moment of reflecting on love and holding it inside of you. Who you are at that moment, that part of you can forgive. It's that simple. That loving, calm, gentle, almost attuned. Like there's an attunement to that voice in us. And that voice is one of calmness and acceptance and goodwill. And that voice, that vibration, that whatever, that part of you knows how to forgive. And since so many people never touch that part of themselves, they find forgiveness ridiculous. And I can't make it simpler than that because we are so occluded from the goodness and the love in our world. We let that voice of fear and ugliness, we make believe that's the only real voice. But we forget it's like tuning in a TV thing, all sorts of different channels. And in the metaphor we came up with like almost 30 years ago, like if you get too used to watching the Life is Shit channel, you start thinking that's the only channel out there, right? You know, if you're watching 12 hours a day, nobody ever cared for me channel, it gets weird if you tune into somebody does care for you. But the forgiveness piece comes, I'm going to say, from watching what, like, basically the Life is Shit channel all day long and not recognizing that there's a whole nother slew of channels to watch. And if you watch the channels that have, let's say, more generous, spirited messages, forgiveness doesn't seem so weird, right? I mean, Again, this is the most rudimentary spiritual practice put into completely secular terms. Open your heart. That is the most rudimentary kind of spiritual message. Open your heart. I'm simply translating a little into secular terms, but that's the message. Open your heart and you will grow. Open your heart and you'll have understanding of things that you don't have normally. It changes your physiology, it changes your brain chemistry, changes all of that. Unforgiveness is a very tense and rigid brain and physiology, very tense and rigid. Forgiveness comes, and again, this was one of the other insights I guess I could use. You forgive because you recognize that right now you're okay. And it has nothing to do with the past at all. You recognize that right this moment, if you really pay attention, most of you are having an okay time right now. When you get out of right now and start to obsess about what you didn't get or went wrong, you're not having an okay time. No, I mean, it's so simple. I wish it wasn't so simple. I mean, then, I would deserve what people pay me. But it is so simple. When you're fixated on the part of your life that didn't work, you have a sucky life. This is not rocket science. In fact, it's just life. When you can remember that there's a part of you that is loving and at peace right now, you can use that part of you as a lens to then look at the other parts of you that maybe didn't quite go the way you hoped. And that's forgiveness. Like right now, right this second, there's not one goddamn thing wrong with the world. Right this second, right here. Doesn't mean that there weren't and won't be things wrong with your world. But right this second, or right this moment, or right this 30 seconds, you can be at peace. And then a minute later, you can be anywhere else you want to be. I'm not at peace. I'm remembering how much I hated my mother. Well, you can do that. I mean, you can do that forever. You can remind yourself the world stinks and I was badly treated. And you can remind yourself of that. But you can also go back into your heart, touch, love, and then know. And it's also possible to be okay with as it is. And when you go back again and again and again and again to it's okay as it is, you're practicing forgiveness. Like right now, And that's all you can do right now. I don't want to blame anybody else or myself for what we did 9 years ago, for why I'm unhappy now. Seems like a waste of time. I really would rather not go back into blaming or bitterness for what my parents didn't do, for what my ex didn't do, for what my kids didn't do, for what my boss didn't do, for what my friend didn't do. I mean, all this, it can be legit. You might have had the worst people on the planet. But right now, they don't have to ruin today. So this is kind of a simple, mindfulness-based approach to forgiveness. It responds to your nervous system, to cardiovascular system, to how you process information. But it's a profound reminder that now, whatever now is, right here, right now, life is okay. And it has a richness when you're now. When you go unnow, it's different. And forgiveness is keep on returning to being okay, which is why you have to practice the breathing or something that brings you into the present where it's okay. So I'm going to finish with one more breathing practice. And then, if you want, I'll spend a few minutes answering a couple questions. So let me again, one more time, ask you to please close your eyes. And close your eyes comes with relax and get centered. It comes with relax. It comes with get centered. It comes with trust. It comes with breathe. It comes with you're okay. Everybody, all the religious traditions practice anchoring that in your breathing. Anchoring it into your breathing. Inhale, open, exhale, close. Don't rush it. Don't hurry it. Breathe like you're okay. I, I, I mean, I try to figure out how to say this in as simple terms as humanly possible. Breathe as if you're okay. Practice breathing as if your life is okay and you're good. Practice. Breathe quietly and gently and slowly and evenly and softly. And enjoy it. Appreciate it. Appreciate the fact that you're alive and breathing. Appreciate the fact that your mind works and that your heart works, and just allow yourself to be okay. It's a practice of being able to trust experience now rather than just latching on to the past to explain why you can't. I I I I don't know how to make it less complicated. We teach ourselves not to be okay now, to be anxious and whatever. And the practice is to relax and be okay so you don't have to drag mom with you for 40 years. She's a terrible passenger, It's like if you're going to drag somebody with you for 40 years, at least make them a nice person. Seems really stupid to drag along creepy people. But when you get to peace now or some okayness, you don't need mom to explain why you're unhappy. You can let mom go. You can love mom. You just don't need her to explain why your life sucks. I mean, mom may have done a lot of crappy things in her life, but you don't need to hold on to them to ruin yours. I mean, the religious traditions have been shouting this for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Don't drag the people who were crappy to you throughout time. Let them go. You don't need them to explain why your life hasn't worked out. It's okay. And we'll finish the same way that we finished the last. Bring an image to your mind of someone you love. And someone you really love, not somebody you're wishy-washy about. Bring an image to your mind of someone you really love. And feel the affection. Just feel it. And collect it in your heart. And just relax into that. Just relax into your own whatever. It's you. Your own spaciousness, goodness. It doesn't matter what you call it. Just allow yourself to relax into your capacity to love as you're sitting here. And then just let it go. Let the experience go, let the feeling go. Just let it go. And gently allow your eyes to open. And again, the same simple reminder. That's where forgiveness lives in you. And you eliminate forgiveness by being bitter or full of self-pity. You make sure you don't touch that peaceful, loving place. After a while, nobody's doing anything to you. That's the freedom of it. Nobody's doing anything. Your mom could be dead and we can still blame her, which is a pretty remarkable sleight of hand, It's like, but when you remember that inside I have a much gentler place, mom can go whatever. I mean, it's just ancient history. And like, what was it? Pumbaa in The Lion King. You need to put your past behind you. You know, it's like it's one of our life tasks. Anyway, if anybody has a question, type it in the chat. I'll spend a couple minutes if I can, but you have to type it in. I'm not taking any like auditory questions. So if you want to ask me something, type it into the chat.
While we're doing that, Fred, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time while you're
Oh, of
out
course.
out of country. That's so wonderful. Um, I have a couple of questions, I think. One would be, what, in terms of Azim, I think that's the name of the person that you mentioned the story of.
Yeah.
What were the influences that brought him to that particular perspective or way of his attitude?
Think he had a long history of meditation practice,
Uh,
of prayer and spiritual reading.
all right, all right.
So
Yeah,
he had primed the pump, so to speak.
yeah, one of the things that I made a couple notes, obviously, while you're talking, and the two things that keep resonating with me in terms of human development and good living is consciousness. I mean, the more conscious that we can become, the more perspective that we have, and then the clarity with consciousness is that we have choice. We have
Exactly.
choice. And you said a couple things in your workbook. I reread your workbook in preparation for this. Wonderful. Thank you for making that available to us. And you said, can you give up self pity in order to suffer less? It's kind of like,
Right.
that's like brilliant, so
I
simple.
know. It is so simple. And Herb, I have gone out of my way not to try to oversell. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
yeah,
I'm not selling higher consciousness. I'm just saying, can you let go of a little self-pity so you suffer less?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, uh, just putting it to you, a simple question like, well, what's the long-term value of holding it, or what's the long-term impact of holding it? I mean, just a
That's
simple
it.
question like that. If people can be conscious enough, of course, emotions are overriding the reason a lot too.
Exactly. And for whatever reason, we're not taught to do that simple calculus.
Yes, but that's where a simple practice on a daily basis of some consciousness completely puts in a little bit of light sufficiently that there is the growth to at some point have the clarity.
And curb that and compassion for the
Yeah.
human experience and others' suffering as well makes a big difference when you realize it's not just you.
Oh, yeah. But unconsciousness, unfortunately, is pandemic. It's the it's the delusion that it's the easier, softer way, because the truth is it's the harder way. The
Much
easier,
harder.
softer way is to foster consciousness and be then in the flow. You used a new term today. I'd never heard it before. You said live in the now, not in the un-now. I've never heard the un-now term.
Well, maybe I just made it up, but
Well, it's a good word because it communicates.
you know, we came up with a couple of very simple insights decades ago. And the good news is with human beings, simple insights, um, they can't be improved upon, you know? You talk about consciousness, I may talk about something else, but those simple things that you come back to over and over and over again, the same insights have been talked about for centuries.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm reading some Greeks and Romans right now, and it's really impressive how insightful they were back in the day.
Why shouldn't they be? It's not like. Anyway, I see two questions here.
Great.
Um, the simplest meditation practice is the mindfulness practice from John Kabat-Zinn or some Vipassana Buddhist stuff. I think there, besides John Kabat-Zinn's, full catastrophe living, there's a wonderful book called The 8 Minute Meditations, and it gives you like 8 different practices in 8 minutes because I think the guy looked at the research and found that it took about 8 minutes of sustained practice to begin some kind of brain alteration rather than just short term calming. So he put the 8 minute meditations. The question, can you talk about your workbook? The workbook was just published this March, and it's really the culmination of all of our forgiveness work. We finally got it down into a really simple,
It is.
comprehensive. You go from point A to point Z, and the workbook prompts you to do it all. There's meditations, there's reflections, but it's taking the soup to nuts of what we've taught all over the world and just finally like oriented so that anybody who had this workbook could forgive. I mean, it can't be more direct and simple than that. It's
Well, but
called, go
the
ahead.
thing I want to encourage people is don't be put off by the simplicity because it is really straightforward, simple. And you mentioned very strongly earlier, come with an open mind and an open heart to the simplicity of the questions, but take them
That's it.
seriously.
That's it.
Yeah,
And it's the Forgive Forget workbook for recovery
yeah,
but it's for anybody. I mean,
yeah,
we were asked to make a book for recovery. The process is the same.
yeah.
Okay, and the last question. Several of my resentments and stubborn grudges are really grudges against myself.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I don't know that that's true the way you're putting it. I think most of us, the people, the cognitive therapists who started the unenforceable rules idea, said most of us have simultaneous unenforceable rules against us and other people. It's not one or.
Yeah.
And maybe you have an easier time acknowledging how hard you are on yourself. But I would seriously doubt that if you're hard on yourself that way, that you're not hard on others also. You just be maybe more comfortable acknowledging, you know what I mean? Acknowledging the fact that you have real resentments or negativity towards others. Now, the core ingredient of the unenforceable rule is a kind of demand that something change that you don't have control over, and you don't have control over the past anymore. You can say it should have been this way, it should have been that way, they should have done this. That's just pissing into the wind. It means
Yeah.
nothing. It's the recognition of the unenforceable rules under it all that allows us to see, hey, that's why I'm stuck and nothing will change. Because I think I keep on saying that should have been different. That should have been different. I should have been better. They should have done better. You're wasting your time. We're all wasting our time, but you're wasting that time. All right. And I need to go after this question. Thank you for the workshop. You're not a 12-step person. I don't even know I know a few of the steps. Yes. Is there forgiveness without the intervention of a higher power? Of course. You see it all over the place. Some people forgive because they release into a higher power. Some people forgive because they don't want to have high blood pressure. What's the difference?
I was going to say, what difference does it make? There's a
Well,
process here for
it
freedom.
doesn't make one damn bit of difference. And I don't believe whatever that higher power or God could care less why
Right.
you behave in the way you're supposed to.
Yeah.
If you want to do it to save the earthworms, I'm sure the higher power would be thrilled. All right. Thank you all very much. I do need to go. I have dinner waiting for me. Herb, thank you
Yeah.
again. It's always lovely.
Enjoy. We'll get some more scheduled for next year.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fred. All right, everybody, we're here for a while and capable of taking some of your questions and considering them, and people can have crosstalk, obviously, here. We'll Fred and I will be setting up a schedule for next year, and you'll be informed of that. And I would like to encourage us, Fred and myself, and you to have some more dialogue. I think that will be interesting and relevant to the process now that we've got some basic information concerning the forgiveness process, both from the 12 step and from the psychological standpoint. Hopefully, you'll read his book and whatever exposure you find in the 12 step community. Some of the questions that he was answering, I believe, could be answered in the 12 step context is do step 4, but do it with somebody who understands column 3 and column 4. There is a column 3 in the big book, page 65. You can see it, but it doesn't have any definitions and it doesn't have any instructions for application. Go to my book and or my YouTube recordings to hear the definitions that I've been given and experienced and the application that I've actually done and experienced so that you can identify the beliefs that you have and the motives that you have that you don't know that you have. It was a startling experience for me, embarrassing, but startling, confrontive, and life changing when I was able to see the lenses through which I'm looking were delusional, were distorted. The motives that I had never seen underneath were corrupt. And I'd never seen it. I was 10 years sober when I was having some of these experiences. So I really recommend that. There is also a prayer practice, pages 66 and 67 in the big book, for the removal of deep resentments. That is a forgiveness process. And the question was asked about higher power. Sure, of course, that's the X plus factor for all of us, the mystery. Maybe necessary, maybe not necessary. It's not a relevant debate. We have the option, we have a process. Use the components of the process. The question that I ask regularly of people: how free do you want to be? No. Simple question. But a very important question. How free do you want to be? And of course, the corollary follow-up question is, how soon? Freedom is available. It might not be as clear, or especially articulated in the big book in the 12 and 12, as it could be, or maybe as it is in some of the other literature, maybe some of my work, or Fred's work, or the recordings. I needed somebody to help me untangle it, to decode the language. I needed an interpreter. I needed a translator. I'm reasonably intelligent, fairly well educated. I was 10 years sober the first time I did the steps with somebody who knew what they were doing. The key is somebody not only who has knowledge, but who has experience. The two go hand in glove. Knowledge alone won't get it, experience alone won't get it. It's the combination. and then to work with people who have enough knowledge and experience that they don't have enough knowledge and experience for everything. Questions? There's a reaction icon at the bottom. You can raise your hand. I will call on you in the order of your raised hands. If you have question, if you have comment, if you have some knowledge, if you have some experience specifically with anything that was said today by myself and or Fred. Paul, always good to see you.
Hey there. Yeah, boy, great today. I love the analogy you made about the lens and step 10 and uh step 11 you increase the light and step 12 kind of illuminate from others, but you just said something that I thought was really cool too. The lens is also what we look through. It's not just a lantern, it's our perception, like Chuck C, right? New pair of glasses.
That's the tough part. You need an ability to look at the lens through which you're looking. Now,
Yeah.
if that sounds kind of mystical and vague, it's not. I'm saying I needed to look at the lens themselves through the lens themselves to
Yes.
kind of sort. It's very analytical process, and it's simple but not easy. It's kind of sophisticated and analytical, and I really needed a lot of help from somebody who was very patient but who had enough experience to guide me through and patience to keep guiding me through over multiple meetings.
The unenforceable rules is so powerful. And today I sort of think of the unmanageability and the unhealthiness. And in step two is believing things that aren't true. That's we believe our stories, and it's just not real.
But the real problem there, Paul, as you know, is that we don't know it's a story. It
Yes.
is absolutely our story, and we're attached to it. And we
Yes.
don't even know we're attached to it because from my standpoint, 48 years old, 5 years sober, it was the truth because it was the only truth I'd ever known until it got blown up through this process.
What's that little thing? Denial. Don't even notice I'm lying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but see that gives me kind of like some kind of shame or guilt for lying. No, I was not lying. No, I
Yeah.
was seeing the truth. No, I was well intentioned. I was well educated. I was a sincere seeker.
Yeah.
All of that,
Yeah.
but I couldn't see that I didn't see. It's not like I didn't want to. It's not like I misshaped or created a mirage. No, I could not see that I did not see.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
thank you
very.
for that clarification. It's really important that we not take any type of guilt or shame for this mischief. Bill says it on page 62 at the end of the second paragraph. We can't even reduce it much by wishing or trying on our own power. Embrace that hopelessness and helplessness of that comment. We can't reduce it by wishing or trying on our own power. That's the X plus factor for us in a 12-step or spiritual program, is that we do believe there's a power. It's a mystery. We don't control it. We just believe that it's there and we rely on it and we act as if it's real. And we really never know, except that somehow we make progress. Yeah. Thanks, Paul, very much. Margaret.
Hi, this workshop, I've realized that I did not know I should have trusted myself. I didn't know it. And it's what you've been saying here with Paul. And the other thing is, and because I'm down the road, I'll be 80 in January. It's like, what the heck? And
Where did my life go?
where did my life go? And the other thing is that I heard from him, which I've always prided myself in on my job, why I was good, but I didn't make the connection common sense. Dr. Luskin, I heard a lot of common sense, even though he's an academic. And I think you probably are the other side of that. You have that common sense and have been able to integrate it. And so is he. I just wonder if he realizes how much common sense he has.
Unfortunately, common sense is not common.
Oh, amen.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Wonderful. So, David has his hand up. Good.
Thank you, Herb, so much. Does forgiveness and the release mean that I'll never have emotion about the hurt again?
I don't, I don't know that. It's highly likely in the beginning, certainly maybe the first year or the first 5 years, that there could be a recurring emotion. Most people in professions call that trauma that is connected to it, but it decreases over time. The power decreases over time. I'm making a contrast now, though, and the question you didn't ask is that you could still have the memory, but no emotional connection to it. I have an absolute memory of the emotional abuse of my father when I was a young child, but I have no negative energy about it. I can explain it. Sometimes I might even tear up in talking about its resolution, but I don't have the feeling on any type of a regular basis. So there's memory and there's feeling and but the attachment to the reality, and Fred was so great about that. It's not happening now. I mean, literally, oh, I might think it, I might remember it, I might feel it, but it's not happening. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
great question. Thank you for bringing it to us. Donnie, please.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much. I'm Danny and I'm recovered only by God's grace and mercy. And the reason I ask my question is as an addict and a big book student, my experience with forgiveness, I was taught to pray for my resentments until God removes them. And some of them were removed really fast. And some of them took a long time, but they were removed. So it's something it's given to me. It's grace.
Well,
So,
part of it's grace, but part of it's grace, but part of it is your action. You see, you believed that there was a solution. You believed that there was a release. You believed that there was some power that was going to intervene and support you. That's all really, really good. In addition to that, the analytical work of seeing why I'm attached to it, the story that I told, the delusions that I had, the beliefs that were not real, the motives that were corrupted, all of that added to my willingness to kind of like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed about myself that
mhm,
I, in prayer. But that's the pages 66 and 67. We're not praying for them, we're praying for ourselves. We're praying for our healing. We're praying for spiritual intervention.
mhm,
God, bring your crowbar. I'm attached and I don't even know how I'm attached or why I'm attached. Bring your crowbar to detach me. Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
No, great comment, Donnie. Thank you so much. Now there's Bob. How are you?
You know, I'm okay.
Yes, you are.
Um, well, actually, opinions vary, but okay, I'll take that today. Uh,
No, but your opinion about yourself is the only one that counts.
oh God, and then I'm in trouble. Okay,
Oh, then there's a solution for that.
there is. I just because the young lady mentioned the book. that was just speaking. I thought I just learned something, and I thought I would just spout this one out. In Appendix 2, Bill says that honesty, willingness, and open-mindedness are essential. On page 13, because my ex-girlfriend had just been at a book study, and she said, you know, Bill says honesty, willingness, and humility are it's very important things. Well, and I told her, well, you know, Appendix 2 says, because, you know, I know the book, right? On page 13, which I read the very next day, it does say that. It says honesty, willingness, and humility. And so this struck me that Bill's using the term synonymous, that
You know, it might be true. Yep.
you're not going to be open-minded if you already
Yep.
think you know a bunch of stuff. So,
No, I like that. Humility, one of my teachers said, is truth. Humility is a perspective on reality. It's a perspective of reality. So no, that's a nice insight.
yeah, I'd never seen that before. So I just thought, I'm just going to spout that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Kathy, please. Nice to have you join us.
Hi there. I don't know if this is the right venue, but I'm going to listen to your talk recently on the joy of living, but
Yeah.
Can you expound a little bit on that, because you say it's the joy of living. And I think it has to do with all this, because basically you're not going to get to the joy of living unless you do this work. But
Correct.
what specifically do you see as the joy of living?
It is the phrase that one of the key phrases in step 12 in the 12 and 12. That's the longest chapter in the 12 and 12 about the awakening and carrying the message and practicing the principles. And he used that phrase, which this year, when I read it, the chapter back in January, really stood out to me as it captures the daily practice of 10, 11, and 12. The living in the joy, or the joy of living, if you will, practicing these principles like being in alignment with reality. I don't need spirituality. I don't need any spiritual jargon or vocabulary to talk about that. And that's why I talked to Fred about consciousness. To be conscious about reality that it just is. And it has nature's organic rules, if you will, organic principles. And I need to find my way so that I'm, with my free will, choosing to be in alignment with, then I'm in the flow and I have an experience of the joy of living. But it requires, according to the book, it suggests, according to the way of living, Bill calls it the way of living, 10, 11, and 12, that when I practice 10, I keep the lens clear. When I practice 11, I have a vital and vibrant flame. Not me, I'm not the flame, but I have a flame in me that lights me up and then sufficiently shines through me to the path so others can, in fact, have the same experience. And then practicing 12, I just got it within the last year or two, where he says, I believe it's actually on page 14, I think, that we perfect and enlarge our spiritual life. We enlarge our spiritual life. And so, keeping with the lantern metaphor, the lantern capacity, my capacity for light, my capacity for compassion expands. And that's the joy of living as the light gets brighter. And in fact, I'm able to be more helpful and more useful. Is
And
that
yes, bonus question, how did you revise your principles?
when you say how? What is your question?
You had
Are you saying what were the changes?
yes, that you
Oh, through meditation and some dictionary work and some revisiting of the language that I used. I just wanted to be a little clear, especially in step 10. I've done some work there. I'd have to go back to my notes to see specifically what I changed, but it's more of, there's not a substantive change in most of them. It's more a clarification by at least my standards, but there was a substantial change, I believe, in the 10th step. I'd have to look at my notes to remember what it was.
Thank you.
Yeah. But as a follow-up to your question, and thank you for bringing it, I do believe it would be a benefit to take each one of the areas of like a principle for step 1, and just spend some time in meditation, reading, rereading, and meditating on the principle, its definition, the action, the description, and that kind of thing, to then evaluate whether that works for you, and or maybe there's something else. It would be a very productive exercise for people. Yeah. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you. All right. What I'd like to do is I will honor any questions that come up. Meanwhile, I'm going to go back to my slides, and I didn't obviously finish. I always have more. Oh, that's the joy of living slide. Many people have seen that before, in contrast to the prison slides. This is my adaptation of the 7-step prayer. It's a prayer in progress. I'm continually fine-tuning it. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, healthy and unhealthy. I pray that you now remove from me all inclinations and behaviors that stand in the way of my usefulness to you and my helpfulness to others. Grant me knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, strength, effectiveness, and power, courage, humility, and gratitude. As I go out from here intending to do your will, by trying to be in alignment with reality as it actually is. Amen. Thanks, everybody, for your attendance, and our paths will cross again, I'm sure.